well as on their faces. People of Kemerovo are very grateful for the donations.
Yeah, we made it. We made it around the world and back, and it was one heck of a trip.
We met so many people who were the first Americans that they had ever visited, and it was just really marvelous.
Gus is back in town, and we'll have a series of special reports beginning next week. The Los Angeles man...
Get involved again.
Fantastic. Now, Tom, on this flight to Kemerovo, there was media from Billings,
yes.
TV from the paper. What was your feeling as you touched down? I mean, did you expect to see what you saw when you got there?
Well, yes, I believe I did, but I think maybe perhaps I had been there, of course, just a short time before, and I knew quite a lot of the folks there, and I felt confident in my own mind that the cargo was going to be handled properly. There were some misgivings here, and some folks thought maybe, you know, we've heard a lot about the black market and all that stuff, but in the first place, I wasn't that concerned about it, whether it was from knowledge or just from being kind of naive. I don't know. It's just not important. But the great thing was that when we got there, it was 40 below zero that night. We had to go a long time to find winter, folks, but we did find it. It was there. And but here was a large troop of young soldiers with trucks, and they unloaded that. They had to get the plane turned around right away. And they unloaded this cargo by piece, put it on a truck, hauled it out to an old bomb shelter out of a hospital, and then toted it down there piece by piece. I made one trip because I wanted to experience, see what was going on. But believe me, I decided immediately that probably one trip was all I could dare risk, because I knew I'd have fallen and busted my nose somewhere, because it was just up some steep, slick stairs and down some others, in through some guardrails and all that. And this was the way it was set up. And then and after that, immediately they began to go through all the things and get it sorted through. And they had a distribution system that was beyond question. This one woman, her name was Ludmilla, and she was a sweetheart. She really was. I think she knew personally every really destitute person in Kemerovo. And it's a city of about 600,000 to 700,000 people. So it's a considerable sized city. But we helped make some of those deliveries, and we have, you know, several pictures of it, this sort of thing. And it was really warm. It was really a wonderful feeling to see how concerned she was about those individuals. It was really great. It just did a lot for all of us. And we, of course, the highlights, a lot of it, we went around to the various schools, some of the special schools, some of the more or less what you might call them private schools. But the kids were just absolutely fantastic. They were performing, they were sewing, they were doing all the things just so down neat. And there again, the kids just kind of wipe you out. I don't care where you're at. Those kids have a way of winning you. And it was a great trip. It really was, in all angles.
Through all that, and Cheryl and I, again, have talked about some of the problems over in Siberia. And of course, they, technology-wise, are far behind the U.S. and much of the free world in a lot of their industry and technology. Medically in Russia, and I'm not even sure what the politically correct term is throughout that entire region now that everything has changed. But through that, I mean, they still dump their hypodermic needles into alcohol, and I mean, they don't have disposable medical supplies, and well, the only upside on that is they don't have it washing up on their beaches, but they have a lot of problems with disease and things of that nature.
Immunization?
Yeah, they're not really up on what's going on to help save the kids on early childhood disease. I imagine their childhood mortality rate is extremely high, if not their mortality rate in general for the area.
Cancer rate is extremely high, proportionately.
Now with that, and Tom will touch on this, I'm sure, in a couple of moments, but have they shown that cancer rate to be attributed to anything other than just the poor quality of life for many, or is it the problems with technology and the pollution? And
they're highly industrialized area, and in the Kuzbas region, it's mostly coal mining, and of course they have no EPA standards. They have not given any regard to air, water, soil, the things that we're working on now. They're way behind, and of course money being a real big factor, they have not done that, and they will be the first to admit that they really are in an ecological disaster area, and so they have asked for help with those things. Because of all of that, the Chernobyl although it's not as close to that region, there are Chernobyl survivors that are in Kemerovo. You know, those types of things have a real big impact.
When you were there, was it, as somebody from Montana, now, and I'll make this distinction, that I've traveled all over the U.S., and the one time that I'm really grateful to be from the state is when I go to New York or Boston or Los Angeles. I mean, I was in L.A. 2 years ago, and I went to Disneyland, and from the parking lot to Disneyland, I could not see anything but this,
Smog.
the flags, and that was it. From there on out, it was just a brown haze. And from being from the Big Sky State and seeing all the wide open expanses and the beautiful conditions that we have, and then to go into an industrialized sector like that.
Well, of course, from my earlier trips into the Soviet Union, when it was the Soviet Union, including into Hungary and Poland through there, of the smog, I mean, the first thing you get is you get a belly full of coal dust and stays there, you're gone, that whole region. And I really had expected when first I went to Siberia to be away from that. So I was quite surprised when I got into Kemerovo last November, October, November, when I was there, to find that here's these chemical plants. It's not just coal mining. Coal mining is a big industry, but there are chemical plants there. Probably that's the heaviest industrialized area. The River Tom is terribly polluted around any of these areas. And it really makes you feel real sad to see that occurring. But keeping in mind that the ownership of all of those plants, the authors of all those plants, was the government itself. You know, at least in this area, the government at least makes some move towards helping clean things up.
Right.
In that case, the government was the spoiler. And when you look at the economics of the situation over there, it's a wonder that they're not even worse, because it's hard to imagine. Everyone there is complaining about the high prices that have increased, all the big increases in prices.
As they begin to try and work into a free market system.
Yes. But the fact is they started so terribly low, so far under the cost of production, that they're still way below that. A doctor, teachers, and this sort of thing, they're among the lowest paid. They're somewhere in the ballpark from, I have a friend in Moscow who's a school teacher. She told me she just got raised to 700 rubles. That's 1 to 100. That's $7 a month. Doctors, 1,500 rubles, that's from my understanding. The coal miners in the Kuzbas have struck several times, and they're getting about 25,000 rubles. Recently, I see in the news last week or so where they had decided not to strike. There's something that's coming up. But they are relatively well paid, considering everything. But when you look at the prices, you're going to have when you buy something for 140 rubles. That's $1.40 to us. It's nothing, but
could be half
a fourth of their
for them,
paycheck. Yeah. So you see, there's the difficulty, and that's high price. Now that is much increased over the last several months. So this is the difficulty that's involved. How can you possibly get up to the cost of production when the people who have to buy the things are so far under the prices? So it's a very difficult situation. And the thing that concerns me the most right now, when I was there in November, I saw one other foreigner in Kemerovo. This time, the hotel where we were staying, the Kuzbas Hotel, had quite a few Oriental people. There were several from India, or from the Egyptian area, this sort of thing. My concern is that we're going to see a repeat of what we've seen in history, where you get in an area such as that, the merging area, whatever, and we see a big influx of large capital comes in and exploits beyond its capability to withstand it. And the people at the bottom of the rung, the ones that are going to turn this thing upside down if it happens, are not seeing where they're going to share in some of that good thing. They've got to have a goal. They've got to see how they can participate, or they're not going to be sitting idly by and watch everyone else getting filthy rich off of their deal. And it's a terribly rich area, beautiful area.
Cheryl, as you prepare for your visit, because I know you say that no matter what, you're going to be on this next plane, even if you have to fly it.
That's right. That's right. I can do it.
You can do anything if you want to do it bad
That's
enough.
right.
You've heard Tom, talk about some of the things that are happening there, and I know that your capacity for giving is fantastic. I mean, we've seen it here in Billings for years. Do you think it's going to be hard for you to be there, knowing that that it is an area in dire need of our help and in what we have to offer them, be it technology, computers, medical supplies, food.
Personal touch.
Or is it the emotions going to run, pretty high?
Well, I think for me, my emotions probably will run high because that's my area of concern. And I think one of the things that they need, I can't offer technical assistance, and I'm not good in the art of the deal and those kind of things. That's not what I'm there for. But I can tell you that their children for centuries have been taught not to smile, and those kind of things. And I think they need that. And I think one of the things that they saw here that made such a difference from the people that stepped off of the plane to the people that went back on the plane was that they have never necessarily been given unconditional love and concern. And I think that there's a whole big area of need there. And so, my expectations are nothing but being myself and doing some of that, I mean, so I'm not going with any other agenda other than the fact that the people that were on the plane mean a great deal to me.
And to experience it.
And to experience
which will
it,
be a
that's right.
once-in-a-lifetime experience.
That's,
Or-
well,
or
hopefully,
maybe 2 or 3 times
hopefully
in a
not
lifetime.
just once in a lifetime, that's right.
With some of the problems in Russia, the transportation, all of those things, we tend to look at Siberia and go, it's a barren waste. I mean, that is what we've been shown in schools. I mean, I
we
could go...
think it's an ice cube.
Yeah, we go into the history books, and I went to West High, and we talked about Siberia, and it's the farthest northern region, and it is the least populated of all the areas within the USSR, now Russia. Things that this is where everyone's sent when they're bad, and now we're finding out that there are entire communities up there. I mean, we're talking 600,000-700,000 people in Kemerovo who need help. Do we have the capabilities within the U.S. to assist them in their ecological and technological needs?
In great abundance. I think that probably that there might be too much stress put on vast areas or amounts of money. I don't think that is necessarily where it's going to be the greatest good, the quickest. Because as I say, what I feel very strongly is that people at the bottom of the bottom rung have got to be able to feel like they're going to participate. And you do that, for an example, there's a fellow out of up around the Hamilton area who sells log homes, manufactures log homes, sells them mostly in the Orient, I guess. Well, he has sent, or is sending, I haven't had a chance to visit him personally, a group of his technical people over there to teach them how to cut and build those log homes. After he's got that on the ground there, he plans, my understanding is he plans to export. And this is where he'll start getting return from his investment. That, to me, sounds like the ideal sort of participation. I've been asked by some of the farmers there, and I have every intention of fulfilling all the way through on it, some of the things that they particularly need to move them ahead. They had good crops last year, for an example, but unfortunately they have no place to storage. Had they had storage, it would have been suspicion of being participating in the black market and would have been chastised by the government in some manner or another. So there's no storage. The machinery does not work properly in most cases. There is a lousy distribution system, if any at all. Well, those are very basic.
Yeah, they don't have a Napa at the end of the store that's got nationwide distribution where they can get all their stuff.
But you see, those are pretty basic things. Now, the government, we hear of all the fantastic changes that have occurred in the government level. Most of those are a matter of talking about them, and they're not necessarily realized down at that level yet. No one gives away power when he has it. I'm talking about individuals any place in the world. And this is the situation now. They're still feeling their way around. They're talking about converting land back to private ownership. But let's take a look at the vast problem there. They've got to set up a method of doing it and all this. It's very difficult. But so it's a matter of being patient, and I think that the people at the bottom of that rung that need to have a picture of something that they can attain, and they can help and they can share in this good thing. Right now, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing about capitalism is strictly all the bad aspects. They're seeing greed and avarice. And I think this is unfortunately a kind of history.
Well, there is a major part of that even within our system.
Oh, absolutely true.
I mean, it exists,
but it's somewhat modified, at least because you have an opportunity to counter it. There, the opportunity is very difficult. So that's what I see. I see an opportunity for a lot of this openness of helping. I would love to see. This is one of the things that we really, I think that Cheryl shares this with me. I know she does. We can, if we can bring some of the young acting groups, some of the children, some of the professionals here to America, if we can bring with them some of their handicraft work, the things they do so well, the painting, the knitting, and the various things, all these various beautiful things they have, and we can convert that, let them sell this stuff here in this country, and get the real dollar back to those folks there. I mean, get the real value back. Then you've been able to help them raise their standards in a very real way. This is even a bit reflective of what the Japanese did when they encouraged a lot of labor-intensive activity among the people. They sold their stuff, roughly put in their Cracker Jack boxes, whatever. As they developed, they became less labor-intensive. Everybody moved up the ladder. And we can see this is, I think we need to have something along that line.
What about, and I've had some people ask me about this, and the U.S., I mean, there are several ways of arguing this, but that, you know, we have some governmental programs that you know, pay the farmer not to plant, and then you have areas such as Siberia, you know, Mideast, whatever you want to look at, who are desperately in need of food. And at some point in time, when they become a healthy nation, I mean, you know, economically wise, which could take decades, you know, people are worried about getting paid for the wheat that we ship over, things like that. What can we give? I mean, will there ever be a time in the near future where we can have an open business exchange that would be on an equal basis? Do you know what I'm saying? Where we can have some trade and some shipping lanes opened up.
I think they have a long way to go because they are not business oriented. And one of the things that I saw, even with the folks that were here, and I'm sure that Tom would agree with this too, is that the way that they have lived in the last 74 years, there is a lot of mistrust among themselves. To start with, I mean, that's the very basic thing, is that you have to trust the people you're bringing on board that you're doing business with. And so I see that as being quite a struggle, but I think that they're all so geared to doing it that will come. And that I think it'll come soon. It's going to have to. This all is happening so fast that I think some of that will come quickly, too.
On that point, I was quite impressed at the attitude that I perceived in the mayor of Kemerova and his city council. I think he's a very aggressive person, and I think he's very knowledgeable of exactly the kind of relationship they need to develop. And it is not necessarily looking at big bucks. And I think these people over there, and I've talked to I have several friends over there who classify themselves as business people. They are not ignorant about business acumen. They are very good. They even have started their own stock exchange in Kemerova. About 50 of them got together, and they actually meet and they buy and sell. Now, this does not happen because they're a bunch of ignoramuses. These people are very sharp. Now, we just need to spread it. We need to open it up and make them and help them do the things that they know they need to do.
There is knowledge, but it's on a very limited basis with some of the people. I would assume that out of those 600,000 or 700,000 people, if you were to take a city, you know, like that in the U.S., you know, maybe half would be classified businessmen and women, and in Kemerova, I would assume that the percentage would be much smaller. I mean, what their educational system?
Their educational system, we can learn a lot.
Yeah.
They have kept a lot of current information from the people in the past. This is how they control them information-wise. But as far as physics, sciences, languages, believe me, those kids they're up to ours and they're above in many, many areas.
Well, is it like Japan where they keep them in school much longer?
No, they don't really. They go to what they call 11th form. And but there's the kids in these private schools I mentioned, and these are not private from the standpoint that they're exclusive, nobody can come, but they are operated privately. But the kids go there after school, weekends, and the whole works, and they are learning such things. I have some pictures of young girls designing, sewing, modeling their own clothes. And the sewing machines they're using are treadle, and their hand crank, and all of this. Doing beautiful work, and models like you couldn't believe. There are computer classes where these kids come in after school. They want to. They don't have a lot of other competition, quite frankly. The other thing is they're seeing that as a means for them to get up and out. Our children, unfortunately, we have sometimes taken away initiative for various reasons, and I won't get into all that. But this is the difference. It's a lot of this bit. If you have a problem and solve it, you're much better off than if you've never had the problem.
Right.
And that's kind of where those people are there.
A lot of their kids are bilingual already, too.
Oh, my, yes.
You know,
yes.
are
Well, that's
doing
always
very
been
well
our problem in the U.S. is that we've we've never caught on, or if we have caught on, we certainly haven't done anything about it, is that the youth can grab hold of a second language when they're young
Absolutely.
much easier
yeah,
than they
well-
can when they're in high school. And I took 3 years of French, and I can get a cheese omelet and ask where the pool is and ask for a hotel, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I'll get real tired of cheese omelets and hotels if I ever go to France.
One of my friends over there is a teacher of English in a special school, where many of the children are special students. And she was telling me, she says, when I was there in November, she said, let me show you what we have to use for English. Each year that we study English, we study an English-speaking country. In the 11th form, which is our senior year, we study the United States. Let me show you the books we must use. And she brought out the book that had been designed by the old communist government party while the things they had to say were not necessarily untrue, they were exaggerated. All the bleak things they could talk about America. Anything discriminatory, anything at all that would indicate something less than honorable. This is what she says, this is not America. I don't want to teach my children that this is America, but she says, what else do I have to teach them English? So this is one of the efforts we really made to try to get her some English books, some textbooks.
Perhaps this could be the next
And
push for this area.
there are 2 or 3 schools over there
Literature.
where they're starting the kids at the preschool, teaching them total English. I mean, these people are really after it. All we have to do is give them the least amount of help and encouragement and keep the thing from blowing up.
Right. Make sure that it keeps a steady, sure pace.
That's exactly right. And this is where I think people need to be involved. Governments can't do it. I don't care how well-intentioned they are. Governments cannot add that to it. Only people can. And this is what I hope we can help with.
Well, we've got just a couple minutes left. One of the things I'd like to do, and I guess maybe if I can get our cameraman to come into your chest and take a look at that white, blue, and red new flag of Siberia, which is actually, you know, I see that and I see red, white, and blue, and it is sort of humorous to me because we have been taught, and even in America, I mean, nobody is away from this. We're communists are bad. Americans are bad, they're our enemy, and now as they begin to find out what we have, they're saying, gee, you know, we're not that far off, and you know, their flag to their newfound freedom happens to be somewhat
of course, that is the old Russian Republic flag. It's not a new flag particularly, but it is.
How far does that date back?
I can't tell you. I should have that history stuff, but I don't. It's embarrassing. No, I don't have that. But it is an old Russian Republic, and is now, and of course Siberia is part of the Russian Republic, and at least at this point in time. And so this is the flag. The old Russian Republic flag is now that republic. Now the other Lithuanian and other countries, they have yet, and if they come up with this united flag, that'll be another matter. But this is the old Russian Republic.
Okay. With the next airlift in the works now, is there an approximate timeline? We're nearing the end of March now. Do we have a timeline as springtime in the Rockies clicks on as to when we might possibly see that really start to take shape?
Well, as we've talked, and we haven't had a real formal meeting yet, but what we would like to do is get one in and get it back up by the middle of April, which is really going to be kind of pushing it. But they have a short growing season, and it's coming up, so the seed and stuff, if we can swing that, we would like to make arrangements and get it over there prior to their planting time. So.
Okay. Also getting the med techs and things like
That's
that
right.
in there to show them how to use the equipment.
That's right.
Tom, going back with this next one, or do you think you're going to try and make a living?
Well, I kind of need to make a living, but with this agriculture thing particularly, I mean, one of the things we're doing right now on the board of the foundation is trying to broaden it. Up to this time, it was not a matter of a question of who could do what. It was a matter of we were kind of on demand status. We had something we had to do. Now we hope that in order to give the board a life and a meaning of its own, we want to broaden it a bit. And so we're trying to put people on the board who have particular expertise in certain areas.
Okay, I've got to stop you there. We're running out of time. Tom Asay, Cheryl Shandy, both of you, thank you for joining me today. As we near April, and I'm sure you hear more about the airlift as it comes into the plan, Cheryl and Tom will keep us appraised. We'd hope that you would keep a close eye on it, keep in touch, and think about some of the things that are happening over there. Well, for the record, I'm Mark Peters.
For the Record is a presentation of Color 8 News Center. If you would like more information or to comment on today's program, write to For the Record in care of KULR-TV, 2045 Overland Avenue, Billings, Montana, 59108.